Under the golden sunshine of the summer of 2021, the long road stretching across the American wilderness witnessed a dreamy adventure. A white van rolled through breathtaking landscapes, driven by two young travelers who shared every moment on social media with promising hashtags. #VanLife, #adventure, #couple goals. Yet behind those radiant images, a tragedy was slowly unfolding. An event that would later shock the entire United States and capture the attention of the world. The Gabby Petito case is not just a story of a young woman's disappearance and tragic death. It is also a stark reflection of the dark side of social media, domestic violence, and failures within the justice system. When someone does not return from a trip, and their only companion refuses to answer, questions begin to arise. What happened in the final days of Gabby Petito? Who was responsible for her death? And how did a dream road trip turn into a nightmare? Gabby Petito, 22, a beautiful young woman with a radiant smile and striking blue eyes, was born and raised in Blue Point, Long Island, New York. Outgoing, nature-loving, and passionate about exploration, Gabby dreamed of traveling, experiencing life, and sharing those moments with others. She had worked as a nutritionist at a smoothie shop and was an active social media user, particularly on Instagram and YouTube, where she frequently posted about her daily life and travels. Brian Laundrie, 23, Gabby's boyfriend and later fiancé, was a more reserved person who enjoyed drawing, reading, and spending time in nature. The couple had known each other since high school in Long Island and reunited after a period of separation. They lived together at the Laundrie family home in Northport, Florida, before embarking on their cross-country trip in the summer of 2021. Although Gabby and Brian appeared on social media as a happy, picture-perfect couple, details about their troubled relationship gradually emerged. Friends and family later revealed that Brian had controlling tendencies, was jealous, and at times displayed violent behavior toward Gabby. Police body camera footage from Moab, Utah, recorded on August 12, 2021, showed Gabby in distress, crying after an argument with Brian, signs that their relationship had become toxic. Perhaps Gabby's greatest misfortune was her emotional dependence on an unhealthy relationship and her isolation from support systems during a journey far from home, where no one could recognize the warning signs and intervene in time. Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie's trip began on July 2, 2021, when they departed from Gabby's parents' home in Blue Point, New York, in her renovated white Ford Transit van. Their plan was to visit several national parks and famous landmarks across the western United States, a 4-month journey set to conclude in Portland, Oregon, on October 31. The trip was meticulously planned, with multiple stops marked on their itinerary, and Gabby frequently shared updates with her family and social media followers. In the first few weeks, everything seemed to be going smoothly. Gabby regularly updated Instagram, sent messages and emails to her family, and documented their travels. She and Brian passed through Kansas, Colorado, and Utah, sharing photos and videos of their experiences. On August 5th, Gabby posted a picture of herself inside the van at Zion National Park. A few days later, she uploaded the first and only video to her YouTube channel, titled Van Life, beginning our van life journey, which quickly gained thousands of views. However, on August 12th, a significant event occurred in Moab, Utah. Police were called after a witness reported seeing a man, later identified as Brian, hitting a woman, Gabby, outside a store. Body camera footage captured Gabby sobbing uncontrollably, explaining an argument with Brian and admitting that she had hit him first. Brian appeared calmer and admitted to pushing Gabby. The police handled the incident as a minor domestic dispute, identifying Gabby as the aggressor. They separated the couple for the night, with Brian staying in a hotel arranged by the police and Gabby remaining in the van. Following this incident, Gabby continued posting on Instagram, but her activity decreased, and the tone of her posts changed. Her last Instagram post on August 25th, a photo of her holding a small teddy bear with the caption "Happy Halloween," was later suspected to have not been posted by her. The last message Gabby's family received from her phone on August 30 read, "No service in Yosemite," but her family later believed that Gabby had not actually sent it. On September 1st, Brian Laundrie suddenly returned to his parents' home in Northport, Florida, alone, driving Gabby's van. He gave no explanation for Gabby's absence, and the Laundrie family did not inform anyone that Brian had returned or that Gabby was not with him. In the following days, Brian was seen shopping with his mother, camping with his family at Fort DeSoto Park, and even reading books about infamous murders, behaving as if nothing had happened. Meanwhile, the Petito family grew increasingly concerned as they could not reach Gabby. On September 10th, they texted Brian's parents asking about Gabby, but received no response. Finally, on September 11th, 2021, the Petito family officially reported Gabby missing to the Suffolk County Police Department in New York. The media began covering the case, and the public quickly became engrossed in the story of a young, beautiful woman who had vanished during her dream road trip. Northport police arrived at the Laundrie home on September 11 to inquire about Gabby, but the family refused to speak and only provided the contact information of their attorney, Stephen Bertolino. Initially, the police could not question Brian because he was not considered a suspect, only a person of interest. They seized Gabby's van for investigation but could not arrest or interrogate Brian without clear evidence of a crime. On September 14th, Brian left his parents' house, stating that he was going hiking in the nearby Carlton Reserve. 3 days later, on September 17th, the Laundrie family officially reported Brian missing, saying they had not seen him since September 14th. This triggered a massive search operation involving multiple law enforcement agencies, including the FBI, the Northport Police Department, and the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. Meanwhile, the search for Gabby Petito continued with growing media and public attention. The case became a social media phenomenon, with millions of people following news updates and sharing information, clues, or their own theories. The hashtag #FindGabby trended on Twitter, and platforms like TikTok, Reddit, and Facebook were flooded with discussions about the case. One of the most critical discoveries in the case came from a YouTube couple, Jen and Kyle Bethune, who were also living the van life and had unintentionally captured footage of Gabby's van parked at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area in Grand Teton National Park, Wyoming, around 6 p.m. on August 27. After seeing news of Gabby's disappearance, they reviewed their videos and recognized the van. They contacted the FBI and later posted the footage on YouTube, helping to narrow the search area. Based on this information, the FBI and local law enforcement concentrated their search efforts in the Spread Creek area. Around 10 a.m. on September 19, 2021, investigators discovered the body of a young woman near the edge of the forest, approximately 900 feet from where the van had been seen. 2 days later, a preliminary autopsy confirmed the body was Gabby Petito's, with the initial cause of death determined to be homicide. Meanwhile, the search for Brian Laundrie proved to be challenging. The Carlton Reserve spanned 25,000 acres of swampy, rugged terrain filled with dangerous wildlife. Search teams deployed scent-tracking dogs, drones, and boats, but initially found no trace of Brian. On September 20th, the FBI executed a search warrant at the Laundrie family home, seizing electronic devices and other items that could contain evidence. On September 23rd, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Brian Laundrie, not for Gabby's death, but for unauthorized use of another person's bank card. According to the warrant, Brian had used Gabby's debit card after her death, withdrawing over $1,000. On October 12, 2021, the full autopsy report was released, determining Gabby's cause of death as manual strangulation, a direct act of homicide often associated with domestic violence. Teton County Coroner Dr. Brent Blue estimated that she had died 3 to 4 weeks before her body was discovered, placing her time of death around late August, consistent with Gabby's last known communications with her family. As the case unfolded, investigators uncovered and connected several crucial pieces of evidence, painting a clearer picture of what happened to Gabby Petito. In addition to the video from the Bethune couple and the police body cam footage from Moab, other key witnesses also came forward with important information. Miranda Baker, a young woman from Wisconsin, shared on TikTok that she and her boyfriend had given Brian Laundrie a ride on August 29 near Grand Teton. According to Baker, Brian told them he had been hiking alone for several days and was trying to reach Jackson Hole. He became nervous when he realized they were also heading to Jackson Hole, and abruptly asked to be dropped off near Spread Creek. Baker found Brian's behavior strange and contacted the FBI after seeing news of Gabby's disappearance. Another witness, Norma Jean Jalovec, stated that she had picked up Brian hitchhiking from the same area later that day, after he had exited Baker's car. She drove Brian to the entrance of the Spread Creek camping area. According to Jalovec, Brian appeared anxious and tense throughout the ride, which she later found suspicious. Interviews with employees at stores, restaurants, and gas stations along the couple's route also provided clues. A restaurant worker in Jackson Hole reported witnessing an argument between Brian and Gabby in late August, during which Brian became angry with the staff and stormed out, leaving Gabby behind to apologize for his behavior. Cell phone data from both Gabby and Brian provided critical information about their locations and activities. Gabby's phone stopped transmitting signals around August 27th, but Brian's phone remained active. On August 30th, a text message was sent from Gabby's phone to her mother, but the family believed Gabby had not actually sent it. Brian's phone was tracked to various locations as he traveled back to Florida, including an area in Georgia where he used Gabby's debit card to withdraw cash. Brian's return to Florida alone in Gabby's van on September 1 was another suspicious detail. Instead of reporting Gabby missing or explaining her absence, Brian and his family remained silent. Even more suspiciously, the Laundrie family went on a camping trip together at Fort DeSoto Park from September 6 to September 8, an oddly casual action if they were truly concerned about Gabby's whereabouts. One of the most critical pieces of evidence was Brian's notebook, found near his remains in October. Despite being damaged by the elements, the FBI was able to recover some of its contents, including Brian's written confession to killing Gabby. According to reports, Brian wrote, "I ended her life. I thought it was what she wanted. But now I realize all the mistakes I made." This was the definitive evidence linking Brian directly to Gabby's death. Police and the FBI gathered an extensive amount of evidence in the Gabby Petito case. Forensic evidence from the autopsy was one of the most crucial factors. The results confirmed that Gabby died from manual strangulation, an intentional act requiring prolonged force, ruling out the possibility of an accident. The coroner estimated that Gabby had been dead for about 3 to 4 weeks before her body was found, meaning she had likely died in late August, consistent with her last known communications. Physical evidence collected from the crime scene where Gabby's body was found included DNA samples, fabric fibers, and personal belongings potentially linked to the case. DNA samples from Gabby's remains and from the van were compared to Brian's DNA, providing evidence of his presence at the scene. The white Ford Transit van the couple used for their trip was also a critical source of evidence. Police seized the vehicle when it was found at the Laundrie family home and conducted a thorough forensic examination. They collected DNA samples, fingerprints, and personal items from inside, including Gabby's phone, laptop, and camera. These devices were later analyzed for messages, emails, images, and videos that could provide insight into what had happened. Cell phone and credit card records provided crucial evidence about both Gabby and Brian's locations and activities. Phone call and message logs from Gabby's phone indicated that her last genuine contact with her family was on August 25th, while location data showed her phone stopped functioning around August 27th. In contrast, Brian's phone remained active, and location data tracked his journey from Wyoming back to Florida. Credit card records showed that Brian used Gabby's debit card after she died, withdrawing money at ATMs in Wyoming, Idaho, and Georgia on his way back to Florida. These transactions formed the basis for the federal arrest warrant issued against Brian for unauthorized use of another person's bank card. Surveillance cameras and bystander videos also provided crucial evidence regarding the couple's journey and Brian's solo return. Footage from a convenience store in Benton, Illinois on August 31 showed Brian driving Gabby's van alone. Security cameras at the Laundrie family home also captured Brian's arrival on September 1st, as well as the family's activities in the following days. Authorities also gathered evidence from both Gabby's and Brian's social media accounts. Posts, comments, and direct messages on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify offered insights into their moods, activities, and relationship. Changes in the tone and content of Gabby's last posts were analyzed by experts to determine whether she had actually posted them herself. Finally, Brian's notebook, found beside his remains in the Carlton Reserve, was a crucial piece of evidence. Despite water damage from exposure to the elements, the FBI was able to recover some of its contents, including Brian's explicit confession to killing Gabby. This notebook, along with other evidence, allowed the FBI to conclude that Brian Laundrie was solely responsible for Gabby Petito's death. As the Gabby Petito case gained nationwide and international attention, numerous conspiracy theories surfaced across social media and online forums. True crime enthusiasts and armchair detectives speculated about what had happened to Gabby and Brian. One of the most popular theories was that the Laundrie family had helped Brian escape or covered up his crime. This theory was fueled by Brian's suspiciously early return to Florida, September 1st. The family's unusual behavior, such as their camping trip from September 6-8, and their delay in reporting Brian missing, waiting until September 17th, claiming that they hadn't seen him since September 14th. Supporters of this theory believed the Laundries knew about Gabby's death and had helped Brian plan his escape or even staged his suicide to avoid prosecution. Another conspiracy theory suggested that Brian did not actually commit suicide, but was killed to silence him. Advocates of this theory pointed out that his remains were found in an area that had previously been searched by police and questioned why they hadn't been discovered earlier. They also speculated about how Brian's personal belongings, including his notebook, remained in relatively good condition, despite being exposed to the elements for weeks. Some theorists proposed that Gabby and Brian had encountered the so-called National Park serial killer, an alleged serial murderer operating in U.S. national parks. They attempted to link Gabby's death to other disappearances and murders in the area, including the August 2021 killings of Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner in Moab, Utah. However, law enforcement ruled out any connection between the cases. A more far-fetched theory suggested that the entire case was a staged hoax designed to gain attention and social media followers. According to this theory, Gabby and Brian had planned their disappearance as an elaborate publicity stunt to promote their YouTube channel, and both were still alive and in hiding. Naturally, forensic evidence and the discovery of both bodies completely debunked this claim. Professional investigators remained unfazed by these conspiracy theories, focusing instead on concrete evidence. The FBI and other law enforcement agencies relied on forensic science, digital data, and eyewitness testimony to piece together an accurate account of what had transpired. Ultimately, the evidence clearly pointed to Brian Laundrie killing Gabby Petito in a tragic act of domestic violence, before returning to Florida, and later taking his own life as the investigation intensified. The Gabby Petito case never reached a traditional trial as the primary suspect. Brian Laundrie died before he could be charged with murder. However, legal proceedings surrounding the case continued in various forms. On September 23, 2021, the U.S. District Court in Wyoming issued a federal arrest warrant for Brian Laundrie. This warrant was not for Gabby's death, but for unauthorized device use. Specifically, using Gabby's Capital One debit card after her death. According to the warrant, Brian knowingly and fraudulently used the card to withdraw or charge over $1,000 between August 30 and September 1. This violated Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 1029. A.1, which carries a potential penalty of up to 10 years in prison and/or fines. This warrant provided a legal basis for law enforcement agencies nationwide to arrest Brian if found. It also expanded the scope of the search and intensified efforts to locate him. However, since Brian went missing and was later found dead on October 20th, 2021, the warrant was never executed. Meanwhile, the investigation into Gabby's death continued. The FBI, with support from the National Park Service and local law enforcement, gathered evidence from the crime scene where Gabby's body was found, from the van the couple had traveled in, and from their electronic devices and social media accounts. They also interviewed numerous witnesses, including those who had interacted with Gabby and Brian in her final days. On January 21, 2022, the FBI officially closed the investigation into Gabby Petito's death, releasing a statement from its Denver field office. In this statement, the FBI concluded that Brian Laundrie claimed responsibility for the death of Gabrielle Petito in handwritten notes found beside his remains in the Carlton Reserve. According to the FBI, Brian's notebook contains statements by Laundrie taking responsibility for Petito's death. With Brian deceased and his confession documented in writing, there was no legal basis for further criminal prosecution. However, Gabby's family sought justice through civil litigation. In March 2022, the Petito family filed a lawsuit against the Laundrie family in Sarasota County Court, Florida, seeking damages exceeding $30,000. The lawsuit alleged that Christopher and Roberta Laundrie knew their son had killed Gabby, but chose to conceal that information. It claimed that the Laundries, working with their attorney, Stephen Bertolino, issued a public statement on September 14, 2021, expressing hope that Gabby would be found, even though they allegedly knew she was already dead and where Brian had left her body. The lawsuit also accused the Laundrie family of helping Brian plan his escape, refusing to cooperate with investigators, and possibly even planning to get Brian out of the country. According to the lawsuit, these actions inflicted emotional distress on the Petito family, preventing them from properly searching for their daughter and subjecting them to mental anguish and suffering. This civil case is ongoing, with the Laundries denying the allegations and seeking to have the lawsuit dismissed. In a significant ruling in June 2022, a judge allowed the case to proceed, rejecting the Laundries' motion to dismiss. This means the lawsuit could advance to the discovery phase and, ultimately, a trial where the Petitos would have the opportunity to present their case before a jury. In addition to their lawsuit against the Laundrie family, the Petitos also filed a $50 million lawsuit against the Moab, Utah Police Department in November 2022. This lawsuit alleged that officers mishandled the August 12, 2021 domestic disturbance involving Gabby and Brian. According to the claim, police failed to recognize the signs of domestic violence and wrongly identified Gabby as the primary aggressor, instead of taking necessary steps to protect her. The lawsuit argued that if Moab police had acted correctly, Gabby might still be alive. An independent review of the Moab police response, published in January 2022, found that officers made several mistakes and failed to properly apply the law. The report recommended additional domestic violence training for officers and changes in police policies. This lawsuit is also ongoing, with the city of Moab contesting the allegations and arguing that its officers cannot be held legally responsible for what happened afterward. The Gabby Petito case never went to criminal trial since the primary suspect, Brian Laundrie, died before he could be arrested for her murder. However, through the investigation and collected evidence, especially Brian's notebook confession, law enforcement effectively convicted him in the court of public opinion. In an official statement on January 21, 2022, FBI Denver Field Office Special Agent in Charge Michael Schneider stated, "The FBI's highest priority and sole focus in this investigation was justice for Gabby and her family." The Denver Field Office of the FBI expresses its deepest gratitude to the public for their ongoing support in this case and for their patience as the FBI conducted a thorough investigation. The FBI formally concluded that Brian Laundrie was solely responsible for Gabby Petito's senseless death, based on key pieces of evidence, including Brian's written confession in his notebook, police body camera footage showing the unstable nature of their relationship, witness statements about their arguments, forensic evidence from the autopsy confirming Gabby's cause of death as manual strangulation, Brian's actions after Gabby's death, including using her debit card, returning to Florida alone without reporting her missing, and ultimately committing suicide under pressure from the investigation. Although there was no formal criminal conviction, the FBI's conclusion served as the final verdict in the case. In ongoing civil lawsuits, the Petito family seeks another form of justice. They are suing the Laundrie family and the Moab Police Department, not just for financial compensation, but to hold these parties accountable for their role in the tragedy. These civil trials could result in financial penalties, but they cannot replace the criminal justice Brian Laundrie would have faced if he were alive. Beyond legal proceedings, there is also the verdict of public opinion. The Gabby Petito case sparked a national discussion on domestic violence, the role of social media in masking real-life problems, and disparities in law enforcement responses to missing persons cases. In many ways, the public's judgment has been harsher than any court ruling, as the Laundrie family continues to face intense criticism and even threats from those who believe they helped Brian cover up his crime. Gabby Petito's tragic death has left painful lessons about domestic violence, the power and limitations of social media, and systemic inequalities in media and law enforcement attention to missing persons cases. The case ignited a debate about the missing white woman syndrome, highlighting how disappearances involving young, white, attractive women often receive far more attention than those involving minorities or men. To honor Gabby's memory, her family established the Gabby Petito Foundation, a nonprofit organization that supports missing persons investigations and domestic violence victims. They hope that from Gabby's tragedy, other lives can be saved. The Gabby Petito case is more than just a heartbreaking loss. It is a stark reminder of the warning signs of toxic relationships that we often overlook. Behind picture-perfect social media posts, unseen tragedies may be unfolding. And perhaps the greatest lesson from this case is that the most dangerous threats can sometimes come from those closest to us. As we reflect on this case, many questions remain. Could this tragedy have been prevented? If the warning signs had been recognized earlier, would Gabby still be alive? And most importantly, these are questions we should all ask ourselves so that from Gabby Petito's death, we can learn valuable lessons and prevent similar tragedies in the future.